Okay, can everybody see that slide? First off, thank you so much for having me. I have a very big soft spot for Laredo, Texas. My parents grew up in Laredo, off Salinas Street, and so we used to come every other weekend to visit my family here. And if you press me really hard, I might be able to recite the Laredo Martin fight song, because my mom used to sing it so many times. And so, but if I don't know it, I could at least hum it, okay? And so I really have a big soft spot for Laredo. Also, I want to thank Councilmember Figueroa for her warm invitation to come speak here. It's really exciting, and I also want to give a shout out to my first cousin, Commissioner Ricky Jaime, who's here. And Ricky and I grew up together. We're almost the same age, but as we've gotten older, I've gotten balder and he's gotten more handsome. And so it's just really not fair. So I hope to share some stories with you. So my presentation is packed with a lot of stories. And I want to tell you that these stories are framed in a journey. And so I come at downtown as a young San Antonio guy that didn't know anything about downtown, didn't care anything about downtown, and then I accidentally started working for a tech company way back when I was 20 years old. And this one move really changed my life. And so my journey in downtowns has nothing to do with the city, has nothing to do with politics. It was just one guy trying to make a good living and have a good career. So why does downtown matter? There are some people, and myself included, when I first started my journey in downtown, that I thought, what does downtown have to do with me? I don't care about downtown, I don't live downtown, I don't do anything downtown, and so why does it matter? And I quickly realized that downtown is critical for the entire city. And it took me about a decade of learning to realize how important this sentence is. And so I want to submit this idea to you that downtown is critical for the entire city. And so let me start my journey by saying, when I was 20 years old, I accidentally started working for San Antonio's first big tech company. It was a company called Rackspace Hosting. And the gentleman on your right is a guy named Graham Weston. And Graham Weston is a local San Antonio legend. He is a business guy, he's a real estate guy, and he was the very first investor of this tech company, Rackspace. He was the majority shareholder of it, and a true champion for downtown. And he embodies the spirit of everybody in this room. He decided that he wanted to make a change as a civic leader. And so what happened is I started working at Rackspace when I was 20, and then I accidentally shared a cubicle with him. And if you can imagine, 20-year-old Lorenzo Gomez, which I'm going to show you a picture of, it's not a pretty sight in a minute, sitting next to the chairman, I was terrified that every day I was going to get fired. And so many years later, I left Rackspace and I started working for him directly, and he asked me to run 2 companies for him. And so he said to me, he said, Lorenzo, when we were growing Rackspace, the tech company here in San Antonio, it was such a difficult endeavor. It was so hard to grow this company. It was so hard to raise money. It was so hard to attract young people and to keep young people that I want to start a tech scene of tech startups in downtown San Antonio. And I have a passion for this, and I want you to help me do it. And so he had me join. The first thing that he did was a technology co-working space in downtown. Now raise your hand if you've ever heard of a co-working space. Okay, so for those who haven't, my mother was like, what is this thing called a co-working space? And I said, Mom, it's just a gym membership for geeks. It's a gym membership. It's like the YMCA where business people join the gym. And so this was the first thing that Graham did. He had a building in downtown San Antonio, and he used an empty floor to put this co-working. And it was a very simple small business concept. It was, we would lease space to anyone that wanted to start a business in a company. So they would pay $50 a month, no contract, and we wanted them to meet other entrepreneurs and other business people. And we wanted them to build a community, and that's what it was about. It was about building a community centered in downtown. And it started to work. And so this was a very simple tactic that he started. And so he invited me to be the CEO of Geekdom, and we really experienced explosive growth over the next 10 years. So while I was on this journey, he also asked me to run the 80/20 Foundation, which was his private philanthropy. So in addition to this small co-working space, he was allocating a couple $1 million every year to philanthropy, to invest in downtown, to invest in tech startups using charitable dollars. So he was attacking this problem from 2 different angles. And so we partnered with everybody. We partnered with Eddie from Centro. There were so many great people that were sort of stepping forward. But it was his responsibility as a downtown business owner to say, I can't just wait for the city. I got to do something myself. And these were the two ways that he was doing it. Next up, we started, co-founded a technology, it's like a chamber of commerce called Tech Block. It's an advocacy group, because right in the middle of doing all this, our city passed a proposal that chased off Uber and Lyft, and all the tech people freaked out. So we did this, so it was the next thing I did to sort of rally the troops and get the tech scene sort of rallying behind one mission. And then the last thing I did was I joined the board of SA 2020. And SA 2020, and Eddie also alluded to this, was an organization that Julian Castro had launched to set the course of his grand vision for the next 10 years of San Antonio. And one of the key elements of his vision was what he called the Decade of Downtown. It's a 3-word mission statement, and it was very powerful. And so he allocated a bunch of incentives and resources focused just on downtown. And so we gave them from 80/20 a grant, and I joined the board so I could learn about this downtown development he was doing. And I learned a whole lot. But the first thing I learned was something bad. And I want to share it with you right now. I learned that my beloved city of San Antonio has really bad branding and marketing. We had a bad brand, and I want to walk you through that bad brand, because I think we have to confront the reality of where we are before we can take it to the next step and fix it. And so let's talk about the brand of San Antonio. Okay, this is the number one thing. Okay, now how many of you have been to the Alamo before in your life? Okay, for those of you that haven't, I want to tell you that the first thing you're going to think when you walk up to the Alamo is you're going to say to yourself, I thought it would be bigger than that. I thought it's very, very small. And so it's sort of a letdown. But this is the brand. This is what we're famous for. Okay. The second brand is the Riverwalk. And I'm here to tell you that there are no locals that come to this part of the Riverwalk. This is just 1,000% tourists. Okay. The only locals here are the people serving chips and queso to you. Okay. And the problem is that this is what we're famous for. If the Spurs ever make it back to the championship, which I'm still praying to God that they do, this is what they will show on the TV at halftime. They will show this picture, but this is not representative of San Antonio. This is our brand. The next brand is, I was in a taxi in Mexico City once, and the driver asked me where I was from, and I said San Antonio, and the very next thing he said was, oh, La Cantera Shopping. And I said, are you kidding me? That's what we're famous for? The only thing you remember from my city was a shopping center in the suburbs? This is not a good brand for our city. Okay, next up, we are known as a family town. Family only. And you would think that this is good, but this is not good. This is not good to be only family-centric. If you and I were to take a clipboard and we were to survey all of the students in this college right now and ask them, where do you imagine yourself being when you graduate? They are not going to pick a city that's family only. They want to go where all the young, sexy young people are, okay? They want to go to cities that are more than just a family town. And if your city is only branded for families, you are missing out a huge population of young people. And this is the last thing. I discovered that San Antonio is an over 500 square mile sprawling metropolis. And once again, this is bad. Now it's good because if you are ready for that 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, if you need that 3-2 big yard for your dog to run around, then we are the place for you. We have this in abundance. But if you are someone who is not ready for that, if you are in a part of your life that wants to be in an urban environment, that wants to be in a skyrise, that wants to be in a walkable area, we have no options for you. And this is bad news for us. And so I discovered that this is something that we had to address and had to fix if we ever wanted to stand a chance to compete. And so this is my findings summed up in one slide. I realized that San Antonio is a tale of two cities. We are a city of downtown that's just for tourists, or at least it was 10 years ago when we started on this. Then we're a second city, outside of Loop 410. We're a city of suburbs that's just for locals, right? And then the third thing that the last thing is that, and this is the most important, we are a city that exports its young people. We are a net exporter of youth, and this is bad. And the reason this is bad is that there are cities all over our country that are fighting this very same problem. This is the number one problem that cities must address and face, and if you do not, your city will slowly die from the inside. And so why does your brand matter? Your brand matters because it does so many things to attract and retain people, right? But specifically, I want to quote two people. So our former mayor, Julian Castro, said, all great cities have great downtowns. But my favorite quote comes from Andres Andujar, who is the CEO of Hemisphere Park in downtown San Antonio. And he said, downtown is everyone's neighborhood. And so I want you to turn to your neighbor, I want you to tell them, downtown is everyone's neighborhood. We've got to get this in our heads. Downtown. It's everybody's neighborhood. But I want to submit to you one more quote, and it's a quote that I made up 2 nights ago when I was preparing this presentation for you. And that's this idea that downtown is your billboard to the entire world. Downtown is how you market yourself. It is the billboard to the whole world. It is like the bat signal. It is the bat signal, and it is shooting out into the sky, and it is proclaiming to the world, come invest in our city, come visit our city, come move to our city, come create jobs in our city. And so if you don't have a good brand, it is not firing the bat signal. How many people here want a strong bat signal for their city? Show of hands. There you go. All right. When your city is operating correctly and your brand is shining brightly, it allows you to facilitate 3 very important things. I call it the holy trinity of urbanism. It's these 3 things. The first one is it allows you to facilitate job creation. It allows you to attract and retain young professionals. And last but not least, it allows you to create districts and density. And I'm here to tell you, no one in this room is more of a nerd about districts and density than Lorenzo Gomez. I'm gonna try not to bore you with this, but this is a really, really critical component. But it's so important, these things. So what I want to do for the rest of the presentation is I'm going to walk you through these 3 things, and I'm going to tell you just a bunch of stories that I've come across in my journey in downtown. So let's talk about job creation first. So this is a picture of 20-year-old Lorenzo Gomez from Slumdog Millionaire, the movie. I don't know if you ever saw that. I bought that polo at Ross Dress for Less for $20, okay? And it absolutely didn't fit me. And so what I want to tell you is this changed my life. This little company in downtown San Antonio changed my life. It was a small business. When I started, there was fewer than 100 employees, and it was a tech company. I had no business working there. It was totally an accident. Matter of fact, it took me 10 years to explain it to my mother. I was like, Mom, it's sort of like the plumbing of the internet, but it was just hard. But it was a really exciting time, and this company was so explosive and so electrifying that I learned so much about this thing called the internet. And so while we were there, I noticed as I climbed the corporate ladder and I became higher and higher in my career, I noticed 2 things. The first one was it was very difficult to keep the company in San Antonio. There was always outside pressure for us to move it to Silicon Valley. But the second thing that I noticed, as a hiring manager, it was absolutely almost impossible to recruit a young person. I remember when I was a hiring manager, I used to tell the recruiters, don't even give me a resume for someone who's young and single. Just give me the family person because I can sell them. I can't sell a young and single person. And so in August 8, 2008, our company went public and traded on the New York Stock Exchange. And as a 28-year-old young man, this really blew my mind. It was incredible, and I thought the future was bright for us. It was incredible. And then something happened about a 1.5 years later that changed the course of my friend Graham Weston that I just introduced you to earlier. He is the chairman of the company, the first investor, the majority shareholder. And after we went public, our company bought an email company out of Blacksburg, Virginia. And what you need to know about Rackspace is it was founded by 3 college students at Trinity University. And Rackspace grew, was successful, and it bought this company. And this company it bought was based out of Blacksburg, Virginia, and it was also founded by 3 college dropouts. And so when they acquired the company, part of the acquisition deal required that the 3 founders would move to San Antonio. And 2 of the founders moved, but the 3rd one was absolutely not even having it. And so after a lot of negotiating back and forth, he sent this email. But before I send you the email, I just want to comment this one thing. Isn't it interesting that a guy who just had his company purchased, who made millions and millions of dollars overnight, you'd think this would be an easy sale, and he was having none of it. And after a lot of negotiating, he sent this email that I've dramatically recreated for you. And so he sent this email to our chairman, and he said, Dear Grant, I know you're upset about me not moving to San Antonio, but I want you to stop calling me. I want you to stop harassing me about this. I will never move to San Antonio, ever. And here's why. Downtown has no downtown scene. It has no tech startup scene. It has no place for me to go walk my dog. There's no live music there. And then he said the worst thing you could say to anyone from San Antonio. He said, and because of that, I'm moving to Austin instead. Boo! And the reason that hurts so much is if you grew up in San Antonio, Austin is like your younger brother that's taller, buffer, more handsome, and steals all your girlfriends. This is not what I wanted to hear. But this is something that we have struggled with for decades. And so this is why this email matters so much. Because Graham Weston knew that entrepreneurs are almost like drug addicts. They're addicted to entrepreneurship. They are always going to keep starting new companies. And he knew that even though we bought this guy's company, he was going to create another company, and another company after that, and another company after that. And he wanted that job creation to happen in San Antonio, Texas. But instead, where did those jobs go? And it's exactly what the guy did. They went to Austin. He created his next startup, and he's up and he's flourishing. This is part of the problem when you don't have your downtown firing on all cylinders. There's a couple of books that really have influenced our work in this. One is by Richard Flores called The Rise of the Creative Class, and the second one is The Coming Job Wars by Jim Clifton. He's the chairman of Gallup. And I do want to tell you that there is a war for talent. There is a war for jobs. And the cities of the world that figure it out will beat everybody else out. So let's talk about young professionals. And I'm here to tell you, this is the epicenter of my presentation. This is what it's all about. This was influenced by, and I'm going to really geek out here, my favorite urban book in the history of urban books. It's called Triumph of the City. It's written by a Harvard economist named Ed Glacier. And in this book, he talks about something that I never heard a city leader talk about. It's the most non-talked about topic. That's the most important thing that no one talks about. And that's what he calls marriage markets. And so he has a chapter about this that I'm going to summarize for you, and it goes like this. The great cities of the world have a disproportionate pull on young single people because the statistical likelihood that they will meet their future husband and wife is so astronomically high that they will overcome all objections and obstacles to go there. And so right now, there are 20 young people driving to New York City to pay $2,500 to live in a closet in New York right now. That's what's happening. And the reason that they're doing that is because downtown is utterly dense with young people. It has such a high density of young professionals that if you just go there, you will know you will meet someone. And we all know what these cities are if we really think about it. It's the Los Angeles, it's the Austins, it's the Denvers, it's the Miamis. These cities attract young professionals, and those cities will win the war. However, the cities like Laredo and San Antonio and El Paso, we actually can compete with them, but it starts in your downtown. And so I want to encourage you that it can be changed. So here's my second story. It's my favorite story when it talks about young professionals. I went with Graham. He was asked to give a speech at the San Antonio Country Club. That's not exactly my favorite venue, because mostly I wear shorts everywhere, and that's why I had to put on pants. I was very upset about it. And so we go to the San Antonio Country Club, and it was a room like this, and it was actually a women-led organization. It was all women, which is a very tough audience. All women, and it was really mothers and grandmothers. And so Graham got up there, and he asked a really haunting question to the audience. He said, raise your hand if your kids moved away to go to college. And every woman in that room raised their hand. And I'll tell you, they were proud. If they were peacocks, their feathers would have come out from the back of them. They were so proud. And then he said, keep your hand up if your kids moved back to San Antonio after they graduated. And every hand slowly went down, and shame and guilt descended on all of their faces. And he said, this is a problem. This is the first time I heard him say this statement. He said, this is the city we have to build. He said, my personal mission statement is to build a city with a downtown that's good enough for my kids to come back home to. And I want to go back because I missed something real quick on this, but it's along the same lines. When this email came in, Graham forwarded this email to Mayor Julian Castro. And he said, Mayor, this is the city and downtown we have to build if we want to create jobs. And what he then did after that was he said, you know what, but I'm not going to wait for you. I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to start right now. And so let's fast forward to the San Antonio Country Club. One of the things that was very important for that audience is that Graham connected why downtown mattered to them, to the mothers and grandmothers. He said it like this: why is this bad? It's bad because when your kids graduate and move away, they're going to meet their spouse in another city, and if their spouse doesn't want to move back, you're only going to see them on 2 times a year, Christmas and Thanksgiving, which means you're only going to see your grandkids 2 times a year, Christmas and Thanksgiving. And he said, this is why this matters. You'll never see your kids ever again. And I'll ever. It gets better. After the talk, there was a line of ladies up to talk to Graham. And I'll never forget it. It was so great. And they were talking to him, and it was very encouraging. And this one little old lady came up, and she pulled out her iPhone. And she said, Graham, will you please call my son and tell him all the things that you just told us all right now? She understood the assignment. She knew that it's about sales. We are selling our city to the next generation. This is very important. I want to tell you another story about Detroit. I heard the gentleman talk about Detroit. It's one of my favorite cities. I go speak there every year. And so on our journey to revitalize downtown San Antonio, I had to go study several cities all over the world to see what they were doing with steel. And one of them is Detroit. This is Dan Gilbert. Dan Gilbert is the chairman of Quicken Loans. He used to own the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't know if he still does, but he's a brilliant entrepreneur. And he got tired of downtown Detroit being empty and boarded up. And so he decided, as an entrepreneur, that he was going to do something about it. I mean, look at this historic stock. It's so gorgeous. So the first thing he did was he moved Quicken Loans, about 3,000 employees, into downtown. He started recruiting small businesses into downtown. And he started buying up property in downtown. And he was the champion, like everyone in this room, for his downtown. And so Graham and I went to go hear him speak. He was doing a conference in Detroit. And we were sitting in the audience, and he told us this story that was really awesome. He said, I launched an internship program for college students. And every year, I bring in over 2,000 college kids into downtown Detroit. And I am helping fund all of their internship costs. He goes, but here's the secret. The interns, the college kids, you know what they want? They want something on their resume. They want experience. I don't care about that. The companies, they want help. They have a lot of work to do. They need some help. I don't care about them. I don't care about their help. You know what I care about? I care about selling Detroit. That's what I care about. He said, I'm going to put on events while they're here for that summer internship. I'm going to put on concerts. I'm going to put on farmers markets. And I want them to imagine themselves having a career in Detroit. I want them to imagine themselves living in downtown Detroit. And if they can imagine themselves living in Detroit, that's the first step of the sales process. And so the question I want to pose to you is, how can you get our young people to imagine themselves in the downtowns of our city? It can be done. So Graham and I were in the audience. We were loving everything we were saying, and we kept elbowing each other, dude, look at this, what he said. So we fell in love with this internship idea. So we came back to San Antonio, and we partnered with Trinity University, and we launched our own version. Straight copy and plagiarism. Right off, I just want to tell you that right now. I just want to admit it from the jump. We said, we're going to plagiarize this guy. So we went, and we started this, and it's